You never get bored as a potter. Today, in the name of pottery, I'm welding. I start by cutting all of my pieces of rebar and cleaning them with a wire wheel on the angle grinder, just in the areas where I'll actually need to weld. This is a humble grate that I'm working on, but the dimensions are actually important. I cut 2 pieces of rebar so they're nearly as long as the depth of the kiln, 58 centimeters. The distance between the grates matters too, but I'm being rather blasé about it. I just found a scrap of plywood on the ground that happens to let me evenly space out the grates, and the number of grates was determined by how much rebar I have. In the kiln book, Fred Olsen suggests a distance of about an inch between these grates. These ones ended up 3 centimeters apart, so just over an inch, and those are welded in place. The logic of grate spacing is this. The further apart the grates, the sooner the burning wood will fall through into the coal bed below, and in bigger chunks. Thus, you're balancing 2 needs. First, you want the grates spaced far enough apart that wood falls through to clear room for fresh wood on top of the grate. You don't want the wood burning down to ash on top of the grates, because then you can't put more wood in. But secondly, you want them close enough together so that the coal bed doesn't build up too fast. It's to be determined if this blasé approach to spacing works out or not. I'll judge that based on how much coal buildup I get below the grate. Too much, and I'll need to redo the grates closer together. If you are interested in building any type of kiln, Fred Olsen's Kiln book is a great place to start learning. It's available to read for free on the Internet Archive. In fact, the Internet Archive has loads of these old school pottery books, many of them now out of print. Some of these books I've been able to buy used, and that's always my preference, but for ones that I can't find in print, the Internet Archive has an excellent selection. Almost everything I know about ceramics comes from books from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's when people with real hands-on knowledge and a driving intellectual curiosity would take the time to experiment and then put everything down to paper. Some of the 90s books make the cut too. In fact, for any subject, if the knowledge existed before computers, I found that the best source for learning that knowledge comes from books published before the internet. You'd be surprised how much knowledge existed before computers. Almost all of the stuff that's relevant to our lives, in fact. So I cut 6 short pieces to weld on as legs. Again, for dimensions, I'm combining general advice from Fred Olsen and specific designs from Steve Harrison. The entire Firebox is going to be 230 millimeters tall. This grate will be 130 millimeters tall, leaving me with 100 millimeters of burning space above the grate and a little bit more than that below. Olsen suggests about half above and half below. The idea is there's ample room for the coals to fall through without building up tall enough to choke the fire. The air coming in passes through the coals on the way to burning the wood on top of the grate. The kiln shelves will get a layer of kiln wash. These are mullite shelves, so they should withstand the rigors of a wood kiln. The kiln wash is a 50-50 kaolin and alumina mix. I used to work a lot on motorcycles. I prefer vintage bikes, and one advantage of working on the older vehicles is that they're analog. You can fix them with only basic tools and a good shop manual. No need for an expensive computer scanner or specialty tools. In one of the books that's been most influential in my life, Shop Class as Soulcraft, Matthew Crawford writes about the beauty of these old shop manuals for motorcycles. They were written by engineer mechanics who not only understood the principles, but also the hands-on act of repairing the motorcycles they wrote about. So you get beautiful, simple prose that directly reflects the work you are trying to perform. Contrast this with today's manuals, if you can even find one. These are written by technical writers who have never once gotten their hands dirty doing the work that they're telling you how to perform. The instructions are unclear, nonsensical, or just plain wrong. Bonus frustration points come if it's auto-translated from Chinese or written with AI. Crawford describes learning from an old-school service manual written by a person who had actually done the work you were attempting as a kind of philosophic friendship, the sort that is natural between teacher and student, a community of those who desire to know. I also mix up wadding, This is just 50/50 kaolin and sand. This is a filter sand from the building supply store, so it's nice and clean and consistent. With these videos, I hope to bring more of that vintage shop manual ethos to YouTube. The information I share is typically a combination of my own hands-on experience and the information I've gleaned from older books. I'm not just parroting what other people online are saying. The benefit, I hope, is twofold. One, not everybody learns from books best, and I want the same knowledge to be available to anyone interested, not just obsessive readers like me. And second, a lot of this material is truly easier to comprehend and digest with a proper moving visual. The paper medium doesn't always lend itself to conveying the movement and three dimensions of so many pottery endeavors. In the next video, I'll share the inaugural firing of this little kiln. My long-term goal with wood firing is to return to high temperature reduction firing, cone 10. But for this first firing, I'm filling the kiln with some cone 6 refires. I figure if the kiln works perfectly up to cone 6, then I can be confident in getting it up higher. But if it doesn't fire well, then I don't want a kiln full of cone 10 clay and glaze tests that will have to be refired, because refiring always changes the results. So this firing is about the firing, not the results. I hope you'll tune in to see how it all goes. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and if you have any suggestions, I'm all ears. Thanks for watching.